It was a quiet night over the ocean. The sky was clear, the stars brighter than usual. A few people standing on the coast noticed something strange. Tiny lights moving fast across the darkness. At first they looked like shooting stars. Some even made wishes, smiling at the rare sight. But the lights didn't fade like meteors usually do. Instead, they slowed down, stopped for a moment, then changed direction. Across the world, similar reports began to appear. People from different countries posted short clips on social media, glowing objects crossing the sky, leaving a thin blue trail behind. Most believed it was just some new satellite launch or a weather phenomenon. The news channels brushed it off as space debris or atmospheric burnups. But a few scientists knew something was off. One of them was an old radio operator who lived near a small fishing town. He had retired years ago, but he still kept his radio equipment in his little shack near the shore. He liked to listen to static at night, searching for signals bouncing off the upper atmosphere. That night he noticed something odd. Among the usual hum of space noise, he picked up a weak rhythmic signal. It wasn't natural. It repeated every few seconds, too precise to be random. He tried to decode it, but failed. It wasn't Morse code, not any known satellite transmission. It sounded like a whisper, distant, trembling, broken. He adjusted his frequency several times, and then suddenly, the sound became clearer. It wasn't human speech, but it carried a strange emotion in its tone. It almost sounded desperate. He stayed up all night listening. The next morning, when the first light touched the sea, he wrote everything down in his notebook. The words didn't make sense, but the pattern was too perfect to ignore. He contacted a local university to report what he had found. Most dismissed him, but a small group of students got curious and decided to investigate. They didn't know it yet, but that small decision would make them witnesses to one of the strangest moments in human history. A few days later, something else happened. Fishermen along the same coast noticed the sea behaving oddly. The waves were unusually calm and the air felt heavy. Early one morning, one fisherman saw a strange metallic object floating far out in the water. It reflected sunlight like polished steel. He thought it was debris from a crashed aircraft. But when he got closer, he saw it wasn't broken. It was whole, perfectly shaped and smooth like a single piece of metal. When he touched it with his hook, it made a low humming sound, soft, like a living heartbeat. He stepped back, afraid. Then the surface of the object shifted, rippling like liquid metal. A small opening appeared and something moved inside. He dropped his gear and ran, shouting for help. The villagers came rushing to the beach, watching as the metallic object drifted closer. From the distance, they saw movement, shapes, figures, but not like any human. They looked fragile, pale, and unsteady, as if they were struggling to breathe the air. The local authorities arrived quickly. They fenced off the area and told everyone to stay back. People started recording videos and uploading them online, but most were taken down within hours. Officials claimed it was a weather probe and told everyone to go home. But the people who had seen it with their own eyes knew it wasn't from Earth. That night, the sky over the ocean glowed faintly blue again. The same radio operator picked up the signal once more, stronger this time. It was repeating the same pattern as before, but now with longer pauses, as if whoever was sending it was running out of strength. He realized it wasn't just noise. It was a message, a distress call. Within a week, scientists from different parts of the world started to piece things together. The strange lights, the metallic object, the faint transmissions all connected. But before they could form a complete theory, another event shook everyone. A second object appeared, not in the sea this time, but deep in a forest far away from any city, and this one had survivors too. Reports leaked quietly, carried by people who had worked near the crash site. The figures they found were weak, dehydrated, but peaceful. They didn't fight, didn't resist. They looked lost and afraid. The scientists who studied them said their bodies weren't built for Earth's atmosphere. They had trouble breathing and needed constant care. Their eyes were large, their skin thin like silk, and their movements gentle, almost childlike. Through careful attempts at communication using simple symbols and sounds, one thing became clear: they weren't here to attack. They had come because they had nowhere else to go. It took months before the truth began to take shape. The beings were not invaders, they were exiles. They came from a distant part of the galaxy, a place filled with many intelligent civilizations, united under what they called the Federation. But not all was peaceful there. The exiles said they had questioned the way their leaders treated other weaker species, the ones they controlled. For speaking out, they were punished. Their homes were destroyed, and they were forced into small transport ships and sent away from their galaxy, out into the dark void. They never planned to reach Earth. They didn't even know this planet existed. Their ships were damaged during their exile, and they had drifted for years in deep space before crashing here by accident. The scientists who worked with them were torn between curiosity and empathy. On one hand, this was the greatest discovery in human history. On the other, these beings were not just study subjects. They were refugees. They had feelings, memories, fears. They missed their homes. Some cried without tears when they saw the ocean, saying it reminded them of something they had lost long ago. But outside those secret labs and shelters, the rest of the world remained blind. Governments argued behind closed doors about what to do. Should they reveal the truth? Should they keep it secret? Some feared public panic. Others feared war. A few saw the chance for technological advantage, new energy, new materials, maybe even interstellar travel. But the few humans who had seen the exiles up close understood something deeper. These beings didn't come with power. They came with pain. One scientist, who had been part of the first contact group, described it later in his notes. When they looked at us, it wasn't with superiority. It was with hope, like a drowning traveler who finally sees a shore. Meanwhile, in small corners of the internet, strange rumors spread about new signals, government lockdowns, strange visitors. Some people laughed it off as conspiracy talk. Others truly believed something bigger was happening. But nobody could prove anything. Back at the coast, where it had all begun, the old radio operator continued to listen every night. Sometimes he still caught faint traces of that same signal. It was weaker now, fading. But once in a while he heard something new, a soft tone, slower and calmer, almost like gratitude. He didn't understand the words, but he felt their meaning. They were saying thank you. The world still thought the lights were meteors. The official reports never mentioned the refugees, the crash sites, or the signals. But hidden away in secret shelters, a small group of humans continued to care for the few surviving beings. They taught them simple human words, and in return, the exiles taught them about the stars, not as scientists, but as people who had lived among them. They spoke of worlds made entirely of light, of oceans that glowed under twin suns, and of cities that floated in the clouds. But they also spoke of cruelty, of leaders who valued control more than compassion. They said their people had forgotten what kindness meant. And when they saw how humans tried to help them, they called it something ancient, something lost in their world: mercy. Months passed. The metallic object that had fallen in the sea was taken away, hidden by authorities. The beaches reopened, life returned to normal, and people forgot. But a few still remembered that night. The strange lights, the calm waves, the soft hum of the sea. They didn't know what it meant, but deep down they felt it wasn't over. Because somewhere out there, beyond the stars, someone knew that Earth had answered a call no one else dared to. Someone, or something, had found a home here, not through conquest, not through power, but through simple human kindness. And the old radio operator, sitting by his window late at night, still turned on his receiver before sleep. Every time he heard the faint echo of that otherworldly signal, he smiled softly to himself. "They're still out there," he whispered. "And they know they're not alone anymore." After the strange object landed near the coast, the town changed in ways no one could explain. People didn't talk about it openly, but everyone felt something different in the air, a strange mix of fear and curiosity. The sea, once full of boats and laughter, became quiet. Fishermen went out less often. Even birds stopped circling that part of the sky. The government had placed a fence around the area where the metallic craft had come ashore. Military trucks came and went at night. The people who lived nearby said they sometimes saw faint lights under the waves, like blue fire moving slowly in the dark. Every time someone tried to record, their devices stopped working. It was as if something didn't want to be seen. A few days later, a group of scientists arrived. Not soldiers, just quiet people with instruments and notebooks. They didn't tell anyone much. They only asked for privacy and said it was a weather-related experiment. But everyone in town knew that was a lie. You could feel the truth in the air even if no one spoke it. On the third night after the crash, something unexpected happened. The same fisherman who had first seen the metallic object went back to the beach alone. He couldn't sleep, haunted by what he had witnessed. As he stood near the fence, staring at the silent ocean, he noticed movement near the rocks. At first he thought it was an animal, but when he looked closer, his heart stopped. Someone was crawling out of the water. The figure was small, thin, and unsteady. It looked fragile, almost transparent in the moonlight. It fell to the sand, breathing heavily, like every breath was a struggle. The fisherman froze, unsure what to do. Then the being raised its head slowly. Its eyes were large, shining faintly like wet glass. They weren't frightening. They were full of confusion, pain, and something else. Fear. It wasn't a monster. It looked lost. Without thinking, he took a few steps closer. The being tried to move back, terrified but too weak to get far. The fisherman spoke softly, though he knew the creature couldn't understand him. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe." The creature blinked slowly, then tilted its head as if trying to understand. It reached out one trembling hand, its fingers long and thin, touching the sand carefully like it was testing the ground. It looked around, seeing the world for the first time, and the stars, the sea, the sky. Everything seemed new to it. Moments later, headlights flashed behind the fisherman. The scientists had arrived. They moved quickly but calmly, covering the being with a silver blanket and taking it away gently. The fisherman wanted to ask questions, but no one answered him. One of the scientists only said, "Please don't speak of this to anyone. It's not safe yet." That was the last he saw of them. The next few days were filled with whispers. People said the visitors were not human. They said the scientists had found more, not just one, but several beings, all weak, cold, and scared. Some were found in the sea, some in the forest nearby. All of them seemed lost and exhausted. The scientists tried everything to help them. They built a hidden lab under a government building near the coast, away from the public. There they gave the beings food, warmth, and air. But they learned quickly that these creatures couldn't survive on normal oxygen for long. Their lungs worked differently. They needed a mix of gases that Earth didn't have naturally. The team had to improvise, creating special chambers where the air was adjusted carefully to keep them alive. At first, the beings didn't speak. They just watched silently, their large eyes following every move. They seemed to understand kindness. When someone offered them water, they accepted it slowly, as if unsure it was safe. When someone smiled, they tried to mimic it. Communication was hard. The scientists tried sound, light, symbols, anything to build a bridge of understanding. One day, a young technician noticed something strange. The beings reacted to music. When a small radio played a soft tune in the corner of the room, one of them turned toward it and tilted its head, almost like it was listening deeply. Then it made a sound, soft, melodic, like humming. It was the first time anyone had heard their voice. After that, things began to change. The beings started making more sounds, repeating simple patterns when the human spoke. They learned to copy basic gestures, pointing, nodding, waving. Slowly, trust began to grow. Through months of patient work, the scientists discovered something remarkable. These beings were not just travelers, and they were refugees. They came from a distant world where their kind had lived peacefully for centuries. But their planet was under the control of a powerful galactic alliance, one that didn't tolerate difference. The beings' ancestors had believed in equality between all species. They wanted peace, not dominance. But the alliance saw them as troublemakers, thinkers who questioned too much. One by one, their leaders were taken away. Their cities were destroyed, their skies filled with ships that didn't belong to them. In the end, those who resisted were rounded up and sent away in small, damaged crafts, told they would find a new home beyond their galaxy. But in truth, they were being erased. They drifted through space for years, losing hope, losing numbers. The journey was long, and most of their people didn't survive. Those who did were the ones now here on Earth. When the scientists finally understood their story, there was silence in the room. It was too much to take in. These beings had lost everything: their families, their homes, their place in the universe. And yet when they looked at the humans, they didn't show anger. They showed gratitude. They often touched the glass walls between them and their caretakers, as if trying to say thank you. One of the older scientists later wrote in his notes, "They don't see us as another species. They see us as hope." Meanwhile, outside that secret facility, the world remained unaware. Governments argued quietly among themselves. Some said Earth shouldn't interfere, that helping these beings might bring danger from whatever power had banished them. Others said it was humanity's duty to protect those in need, no matter where they came from. In the middle of all this, a strange thing began to happen. The beings started to recover. Their bodies, once fragile and pale, began showing signs of strength. They could walk longer, breathe a little better, and communicate more clearly. The scientists decided to take them outside one night, not into the open world, but just to the edge of the coast, where they could see the ocean again. When they stepped out under the moonlight, the beings stood quietly staring at the waves. One of them placed its hand over its chest and made a soft, glowing motion, a gesture they often used when expressing something deep. Later, the team learned that gesture meant home. That moment touched everyone there. It didn't matter that these beings were not from Earth. For that short night, they all felt the same thing, belonging. But the peace didn't last long. Soon after, one of the beings fell ill. Their body reacted badly to the air, and even the special chamber couldn't save them completely. The team worked day and night to help, but nothing seemed to work. During their final moments, the being looked at the people around them and made the same hand gesture again, the one that meant home. No one spoke. Some cried quietly. They didn't just lose a visitor from another world, and they lost a friend. That night, something changed in the hearts of the scientists. They were no longer working on a secret experiment. They were caring for living souls who had been abandoned by their own galaxy. The story spread quietly among those who worked there. They began to believe that maybe the beings didn't come to Earth by mistake. Maybe they were meant to find a place where compassion still existed, a planet where humanity still remembered how to help the helpless. In the weeks that followed, the surviving beings slowly began to adapt better. They learned a few human words like safe, thank you, and Earth. And when someone asked one of them what they thought of this planet, the being looked up at the sky and said one word softly, kind. That single word made everyone fall silent. No official record of those moments exists. Everything was hidden from the public eye. The project had no name, no files, no history. But those who were there never forgot what they saw. They never forgot the fragile hands, the soft voices, the look of wonder when the beings saw rain for the first time. And deep down, every one of them knew this was only the beginning, because the galaxy might have banished them. But on Earth they had finally been taken in. The world above still moved as usual. Cars on the roads, people at work, waves crashing quietly on the shore. But under the surface, in a place no one knew existed, history was quietly being rewritten. Inside the hidden facility near the coast, the air always smelled faintly of metal and salt. The hum of machines never stopped. The team worked in shifts, studying, helping, and trying to understand the beings who had fallen from the stars. But now something new had started. They were finally talking. It didn't happen suddenly. At first, the beings only spoke in short, soft tones, sounds that had rhythm and emotion but no meaning anyone could understand. The scientists recorded everything, playing it back hundreds of times until they noticed patterns repeating. One of the linguists realized those sounds were not just words. They were memories. The beings were not speaking to the humans at all. They were recalling their past. To help them express more, the team built a special device that translated vibrations in sound and light. The beings could speak into it and the machine would show shapes and symbols. Over weeks, a language bridge began to form. It was slow, like teaching a child to speak again. But one night, the machine gave out a clear translation. It said only 3 words. We were banished. Everyone froze. The room went silent. One of the beings looked at them through the glass, its eyes calm but filled with something heavy, sorrow. Then it began to speak again and the machine continued to translate. Bit by bit, they learned what had truly happened. The beings came from a galaxy far beyond Earth's reach, a place humans had never even imagined. Their world was part of a vast network, something they called the Great Federation. It wasn't a friendly alliance like humans might think. It was a system built on control. The powerful ruled over the weak, and peace was only kept through obedience. The beings' home planet had once been full of light. They were a gentle race, creators and thinkers, not soldiers. They built floating gardens, crystal cities, and starships that moved through energy rather than fuel. They believed knowledge was meant to be shared, not owned. But that belief made them dangerous in the eyes of the Federation's leaders. At first, the leaders ignored them. But as their ideas spread, other worlds began to question the Federation's rules too. That was when the persecution started. Through the translator, the beings showed holographic images from their memory cores, glowing cities surrounded by storm clouds, ships descending from the sky, people running, not in war but in confusion. They said their leaders had called them dreamers. The word sounded peaceful, but in their world it meant traitors. They were given a choice: silence their ideas or leave forever. Many refused to bow, so the Federation decided to erase them. Entire families were rounded up and sent onto small ships, stripped of supplies, navigation, or protection. They were sent beyond the galaxy's border, a place they called the Empty Path. It was a punishment worse than death. The humans in the room listened quietly, some barely breathing. The being speaking through the machine paused often, as if each word hurt to recall. When it showed the last memory, a ship drifting into darkness, hundreds of tiny lights fading one by one, many in the room felt their eyes sting. They realized then that the beings on Earth were the last of their kind. Days turned into weeks, and communication improved. The beings shared more about their lost world, how they had once lived in harmony, how they had studied the stars not for power but for understanding. They had no weapons, no armies. Their strength had always been knowledge and compassion, and that was what frightened their rulers most. When they drifted through space, time became meaningless. Some died in silence. Others sang to each other, songs without words, only sounds of memory, to keep from losing hope. They thought no world would ever take them in. Until one day, their ship's sensors detected something faint, a blue planet glowing softly in the distance. It wasn't their home, but it felt alive. That planet was Earth. The team began to see them differently. They were no longer strange beings from another world. They were survivors, like people who had escaped a war they never wanted. They didn't come looking for power. They came searching for safety, but not everyone on Earth saw it that way. Rumors had started to leak. Some military officers wanted to take control of the project. They argued that if these beings could build advanced ships, their technology could change the balance of power on Earth. Others feared what would happen if the galaxy found out that humanity had taken in the Federation's exiles. Late one night, a quiet meeting took place between a few of the scientists and a group of government officials. The officials demanded that the beings be moved to a secure location, far away from public eyes. One of the scientists spoke firmly, saying, "They're not dangerous. They need help, not cages." But his words fell on deaf ears. The next morning, the beings sensed the tension. They could feel fear. They could hear the difference in the humans' voices. One of them approached the glass and spoke a single word. "Danger?" No one answered. The humans were torn between duty and conscience. They knew keeping them hidden might protect Earth, but it also meant the beings would live as prisoners, never seeing sunlight again. Some of the younger researchers started to secretly bring them small comforts: seashells from the beach, pieces of music, drawings of trees and clouds. The beings would study each item carefully, smiling faintly, their eyes glowing with a soft light whenever they learned something new about this planet. One evening, during a quiet test, one being projected a hologram of its old world. The image floated in the air, golden mountains, shining rivers, and a massive crystal tower in the middle of a city. Everyone in the room was silent. Then the being pointed to the tower and said, "Knowledge." It pointed to the humans next and said, "Heart." That simple moment changed everything. The scientists realized that while the galaxy had seen these beings as troublemakers, Earth had found something else, a reflection of itself. Both had suffered, both had been underestimated, and both still believed in hope. As time went on, the beings shared one final piece of truth, something they had kept hidden even from the humans who helped them. They revealed that before being exiled, they had sent one last signal out into the universe, a message asking for mercy. They never expected anyone to hear it, but when Earth's radio stations picked up those faint broken signals months earlier, that was the echo of their call for help. The humans had answered. Unknowingly, that realization brought tears to many eyes. They hadn't just found the beings, they had rescued them from complete extinction. But hope always brings risk. Not long after, strange signals appeared again in the sky. They were faint but structured, coming from deep space. The old radio operator by the coast, who still listened every night, picked them up first. When decoded, the message was short: return what is not yours. The humans knew what that meant. The Federation had discovered their lost exiles were alive, and on Earth. Fear spread quietly among the officials. Some wanted to send the beings away to protect Earth from whatever might come next, but the scientists and caretakers refused. They couldn't let these gentle creatures be abandoned again. The beings themselves remained calm. When told about the message, they simply bowed their heads and said through the translator, "They fear what they do not understand." That night, one of the humans asked them a question. "If you could go back, would you?" The being thought for a long moment before replying, "We had home. Now we have heart." That simple sentence silenced the entire room. They didn't want to return. They had finally found something they had never known in their galaxy: kindness without condition. Humanity, for all its flaws, had done what the stars would not. And as the days passed, the team decided on something that would change everything. If the Federation wanted a response, Earth would give one, not in fear, but in compassion. They began preparing a new message, one that would soon be sent back into space. It would tell the galaxy that those who were banished had found a home here. But before that signal could be sent, something unexpected happened, one that would test humanity's courage like never before. The discovery of the strange message, "Return what is not yours," changed everything inside the secret facility. Until then, the scientists had worked quietly, hidden from the world, believing they had time to protect the beings and help them heal. But now the threat was real. Someone out there, far beyond Earth's reach, knew exactly where the exiles were. For the first time since they arrived, fear filled the underground rooms. Not the kind of fear that causes panic, but the quiet kind that eats away at your heart, the one that comes when you know something powerful is watching you and there's nothing you can do about it. Meetings were held day and night. Governments from different countries joined through secret lines arguing about what to do. Some said Earth couldn't risk being noticed by a galactic force that had the power to banish entire civilizations. Others said turning the refugees away would make humanity no better than the ones who had cast them out. No one could agree. The scientists who worked closest with the beings refused to stand aside. They had lived with them for months, cared for them, taught them, laughed with them. They had learned that these creatures didn't have soldiers or weapons or even the concept of revenge. They didn't know war. They only knew survival and hope. One evening, as the humans argued in the conference room, one of the beings quietly entered. Its steps were light, its expression calm. It placed its hand on the table and looked around. Through the translator device, its voice came out soft but clear. "We do not bring danger. We bring truth." No one spoke. The being continued. "If they come, they will not come for us. They will come for silence." The humans looked at one another. The meaning was clear. The Federation didn't want to destroy the exiles. They wanted to erase the story of what had been done to them. They wanted silence, not war. The being then placed its hand on its chest, a gesture the team had come to understand as a sign of emotion, and said, "We trust you. You gave us breath when we had none." And just like that, the room that had been filled with fear was filled with something else. Guilt, maybe courage, maybe both. That night, several scientists gathered near the coast to talk privately. They knew the higher authorities would soon order the removal of the beings, possibly send them far from Earth. The idea of that broke their hearts. "If they take them," one of them said softly, "we may never see them again. They'll disappear just like they did from their galaxy." Another voice answered, "Then we can't let that happen." From that moment, a small group of humans decided to protect the beings, no matter the cost. They planned quietly, creating a hidden place deeper underground, far away from the government's eyes. They called it simply the shelter. It wasn't much, a few chambers, warm lights, and a filtered air system, but it was safe. When they told the beings about the plan, the exiles listened quietly. One of them reached out, touching the scientist's hand lightly, a gesture of trust. They didn't speak, but their expression said everything. In the days that followed, the team moved them secretly at night. It took several trips, and every step felt dangerous. If anyone discovered what they were doing, they would lose everything. But the humans didn't care. They had already made their choice. Meanwhile, the world above remained unaware. People were busy with their own lives, scrolling through their screens, watching the sky without knowing what hid behind it. But if someone had looked closely at the ocean that week, they might have noticed something strange. Faint lights under the waves moving slowly like stars trapped beneath the surface. Inside the shelter, life began to change again. Without the pressure of being watched, the beings seemed more at peace. They explored the new space, learning how to use simple human things: switches, cups, books. They liked books the most. They didn't understand every word, but they loved the idea that humans used paper to keep their thoughts alive. One of the exiles learned to draw. Using a pencil for the first time, they sketched small pictures of what they remembered. The way, twin suns of their world, floating gardens and tall cities made of crystal towers. When a scientist saw it, she whispered, "It's beautiful." The being smiled softly and said one word through the translator: memory. But while peace filled the small shelter, tension grew outside it. The message from space had shaken global powers. Satellites began picking up strange patterns again, not from Earth but from deep space, as if something was scanning the planet. Military officials became nervous. Some countries prepared in secret, building defense systems for a threat they couldn't even see, and yet the beings themselves remained calm. They told the scientists that the Federation would not attack immediately. "They do not destroy what they do not fear," one of them explained. "They will watch first." That made the humans wonder, were they already being watched? Days passed, and then something unexpected happened. The beings began to grow stronger. Their skin, once pale and fragile, now had a faint glow. They said Earth's atmosphere, though different, was healing them slowly. They started to walk outside the chamber without the special air support for longer periods. One of them even managed to stand under sunlight for a few minutes before returning inside. That day, something remarkable happened. As the being stood under the morning light, it turned its face upward and let out a soft, musical sound, something between a hum and a whisper. The scientist standing nearby asked what it meant. The translator took a moment, then displayed a single word: alive. It was the first time anyone had seen them smile. The humans began to realize that maybe the beings weren't meant to leave. Maybe somehow this planet had become a second chance, for them and for humanity too. But peace was fragile. A week later, a secret message reached the government from an unknown source. It contained encrypted data, star coordinates, and communication patterns matching the Federation's technology. The meaning was clear. Earth had been officially marked as a restricted system. That meant anyone found aiding the exiles would be considered enemies of the Federation. The scientists were called back for questioning. They were asked where the beings were, what information they had shared, and whether Earth had learned anything useful from them. Most stayed silent. They had agreed never to reveal the truth. That night, inside the shelter, one of the scientists broke down in front of the beings. "We can't keep you safe forever," he said quietly. "They'll come one day." The being listened and replied softly, "Then let them see who you are." It took the humans a moment to understand, but then it became clear. The beings didn't want to hide anymore. They believed humanity deserved to stand with courage, not fear. And so, the small team began to prepare something bold. If the Federation wanted silence, Earth would give them a voice instead. They started building a signal transmitter using the fragments of the beings' crashed craft mixed with human technology. It was dangerous and difficult, but it was their only way to speak back to the stars. Every night they worked together. In the shelter, humans and beings side by side, connecting wires, testing frequencies, decoding signals. Sometimes the beings would sing softly as they worked, their voices echoing through the tunnels like gentle wind. Weeks passed. The transmitter was almost ready. But then something unexpected occurred. A bright flash appeared in the sky. Not A meteor, not a satellite, but something far larger hovering in orbit. The readings showed an object moving slowly above Earth, silent but powerful. The government panicked. Orders were sent to prepare for global emergency, but before any action could be taken, the object vanished, gone as if it had never been there. Only a faint signal remained, repeating one strange phrase in alien code. The scientists decoded it the next day. The message said, "Observe their choice." It was clear. The galaxy was waiting to see what Earth would do next. Inside the shelter, no one slept that night. The beings sat quietly, their glowing eyes reflecting the dim lights of the room. Finally, one of them stood and said, "You are not alone now. Whatever happens, we stand together." The humans nodded. They knew the world was changing, whether it was ready or not. As dawn broke over the ocean, the small group gathered by the transmitter. With one final adjustment, they prepared to send the first message from Earth to the galaxy. The leader of the group hesitated for a moment, then pressed the button. A beam of light shot into the sky, disappearing beyond the clouds, carrying a message written in both human and alien code. It said only this: "They were banished. We took them in." For a few seconds, the world was silent. Then, somewhere deep, in space, the stars seemed to flicker, as if someone, somewhere, had heard. The team looked up at the sky, their faces calm but proud. The beings stood beside them, their glowing eyes full of warmth. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And that was how Earth's greatest dilemma turned into its greatest decision. Not to hide in fear, but to choose kindness in a universe that had forgotten what it meant. When the signal left Earth, no one knew what would happen next. It had taken months of fear, courage, and quiet hope to reach that point, and now all they could do was wait. The transmitter was silent, its lights slowly dimming. The ocean wind outside the shelter carried the smell of salt and rain. The small group of humans stood together beside the beings, watching the sky through the narrow glass dome above them. Nothing seemed different, but deep down everyone could feel it. Something in the universe had shifted. For the first few days, there was no reply. The world above went on as usual, cars moving, people working, the news busy with politics and small stories. But beneath the surface, governments were restless. The space agencies kept their antennas locked on deep space frequencies, searching for any sign of a response. Every time a strange sound came through the static, hearts raced, but it was always just background noise. The scientists in the shelter tried to stay calm. They worked on improving life support, fixing power lines, and teaching the beings more about human life. The beings learned quickly. They liked music and colors, and one of them even started copying human handwriting on scraps of paper. They wrote small sentences like "light means life" and "sky feels kind." It was peaceful for a while, almost too peaceful. But then, on the 7th night after the signal was sent, something changed. A sudden vibration passed through the ground. The machines flickered. Alarms that hadn't sounded in months came alive. The team rushed to the control room and checked the monitors, and there it was, a new signal, coming from deep space, focused directly at Earth. At first, it was only a pulse, slow, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Then words began to form through the translation software. "Your world has spoken. The council will answer." The air inside the shelter went cold. The humans exchanged nervous looks, unsure if that was a promise or a threat. One of the beings stepped forward, placing its hand on the screen. Its voice came through the translator softly. "They have heard us. But they are not all kind." That night, no one slept. They monitored the signal as it grew stronger, spreading across communication bands worldwide. Soon, even civilian radio telescopes started picking it up. The existence of the message couldn't stay secret anymore. Within 2 days, rumors began spreading online about a strange signal from the stars, about hidden messages and governments hiding alien refugees. The story caught fire. News anchors discussed it on air, and millions of people around the world began to look at the sky with mixed emotions: curiosity, fear, excitement. Inside the shelter, the small group watched in silence. What they had tried so hard to protect was now out in the open. There was no turning back. The governments called emergency meetings again. Some leaders demanded that the beings be handed over, saying Earth couldn't risk a war with a galactic power. Others argued that humanity had already chosen when it sent the signal. They said Earth couldn't build a better future by betraying innocent lives. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't arguing over land or money, but over what it meant to be human. Meanwhile, the beings stayed calm. They spent hours sitting together in the quiet corners of the shelter, touching the ground gently, almost as if they were listening to something beneath it. When one of the scientists asked what they were doing, the being replied softly, "We are thanking your world." It turned out that their species had a belief that every planet had a soul, a kind of quiet consciousness that heard kindness and remembered it. They believed Earth had given them a new voice when their own world had gone silent. The scientist listened quietly, realizing that maybe the beings understood this planet more deeply than humans did. Days passed. The world outside became more divided. Some people celebrated the idea of helping another species, calling it humanity's greatest act of kindness. Others protested, shouting that aliens had no place on Earth. The small team watched the news with heavy hearts. "We never wanted this to happen," one of them whispered. But one of the beings answered gently, "Change always begins with pain." On the 12th day after the message, the sky changed again. The space stations orbiting Earth reported an unidentified object appearing at the edge of the atmosphere. It was not an attack, it just floated there, silent, massive, glowing, faintly blue. Its surface shimmered like glass, and its shape shifted slowly as if it was alive. The governments panicked again. Fighter jets were launched. Satellites recorded the object from every angle. It didn't respond to any signals. It simply hovered there, watching. From inside the shelter, the beings looked up at the images on the screen. Their expressions turned solemn. "That is a vessel of the Council," one of them said softly. "They are not here for us. They are here to see you." Hours later, a message came, broadcasted across every major frequency, translated automatically into human languages. "You have sheltered the Banished. You have spoken for them. Now we will see if your world deserves to stand among the stars." No one could understand exactly what that meant, but everyone felt the weight of it. The world had been pulled into something far larger than anyone had imagined. Inside the shelter, the humans gathered once again with the beings. One of the scientists spoke quietly, his voice trembling. "They're testing us, but we don't even know how." The being looked at him and said, "You already began the test when you chose kindness." Outside, the strange vessel began releasing small lights, thousands of them, that scattered through the sky like glowing dust. They drifted gently down toward the planet. People across the world saw them, tiny spheres that hovered in the air like snow that never touched the ground. They emitted soft sounds, almost like whispers. Soon, people realized the lights were harmless. When they came close, they projected small images, moments of Earth's history. A child's laughter, a storm calming over the sea, hands helping each other after disasters. Music, art, love, memories of what made humans human. The beings watched it too. One of them smiled for the first time and said, "They are watching your heart." Over the next few days, the lights drifted across every continent, observing, recording, learning. Humanity lived under their gentle glow. People went about their days, half in awe, half in fear. But something unexpected happened. People started helping each other more. Strangers began to speak kindly. Communities cleaned their towns. Musicians played songs under the glowing sky. It was as if, for a short while, everyone remembered what truly mattered. Even the protests stopped. Fear turned into curiosity. The world stood still when not because of fear of invasion, but because everyone wanted to show that Earth could be more than what others believed. In the shelter, the beings stood with their human friends and said, "This is the answer. This is what they needed to see." After a week, the lights began to fade, floating back into the sky one by one. The massive ship still hovered silently above Earth. Then finally, another message came through the frequencies. "The Council has witnessed your compassion. You have taken in those we cast away. The measure of your world is not its power, it is its mercy." The message paused. Then came the final line. "You may keep them. They are yours now, as you are theirs." The world was stunned. No one fully understood what it meant, but the meaning was clear enough. Earth had been allowed to protect the beings. There would be no punishment, no destruction. The galaxy had seen what humanity chose, and accepted it. In the shelter, tears filled the scientists' eyes. The beings stood beside them, their faint glow shimmering like morning light. One of the scientists whispered, "They accepted us." The being smiled softly and said, "No, you accepted us first." The humans realized that everything they had done, hiding them, risking their lives sending that brave message, had changed not just the fate of the beings, but the way the galaxy saw humanity. A few days later, the great ship slowly drifted away from Earth. It didn't vanish instantly. Instead, it lingered near the edge of the atmosphere for hours, as if watching one last time. Then it disappeared into the deep darkness, leaving only the stars behind. Peace returned slowly. Governments closed their emergency meetings. The world exhaled. For the first time in history, humanity had spoken directly to the galaxy, not with weapons or fear, but with kindness. Inside the shelter, life continued. The beings helped the humans study their technology, their biology, their history. They began to heal on both physically and emotionally. Some of them even started to explore the surface, hidden among people who didn't even realize they weren't human. And every night, the scientists would look at the stars and remember that moment, when Earth, a small blue world at the edge of a massive galaxy, had made a choice that no one expected, a choice not of war, but of welcome, a choice that changed everything. And though most of the world would never know the full story, those who lived it would always remember the quiet message that began it all, the one that carried across the universe, glowing brighter than any weapon or warning. After the great ship disappeared beyond the edge of the atmosphere, life slowly began to settle back into a new kind of normal. The world had changed even if most people didn't realize it. A quiet ripple of awareness passed through humanity, that somewhere beyond the stars, there were watchers observing, judging, and perhaps learning from them. Inside the shelter, life was vibrant but peaceful. The beings moved with confidence now. They had learned much about Earth, its language, its ways, and its people. They had begun to understand humans not only as caretakers but as friends, companions who had risked everything to protect them. The scientists watched in quiet awe as the beings explored the facility. One of them ran their hand over a smooth wall, smiling faintly, and said through the translator, "Your world, it feels alive." It was more than a statement about the physical Earth. The humans understood immediately. The being was talking about kindness, courage, and hope. Humanity itself had been noticed. As the days passed, the beings began to express themselves more openly. They shared their knowledge with the scientists, ideas about energy, star navigation, and ways to heal not just bodies but ecosystems. Every suggestion was gentle, carefully measured, and always aimed at helping, never controlling. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and violet, a meeting was held in the main chamber of the shelter. The humans sat in a semicircle, the beings in front of them glowing faintly under the soft lights. One of the elders among the beings spoke first. Their voice was melodic, almost like a song. "We have lived in darkness before," it said softly. "Our galaxy cast us out. Our songs were silenced. Our light was dimmed. But here you gave us air, warmth, and heart. That is more than a home. That is life." The humans listened quietly. Some wiped tears from their eyes. It was one thing to know they had helped. It was another to hear that it had truly mattered. "Now," the being continued, "the galaxy watches us, not as enemies, not as strangers, but as witnesses. They will see your choice. They will remember." The scientists understood. Their actions had created something bigger than themselves. Earth had not just sheltered the beings. It had shown the universe what humanity could be. The beings began to share a vision of what was to come. They projected faint images into the air like holograms showing distant galaxies and the vast councils of planets. "Many worlds judge by power," one being said. "Many see survival as strength. But you, your world, chose mercy. That is rare. That is seen." The humans were amazed. Their small acts of courage, their choice to protect and welcome, were no longer just a secret hidden in a shelter. They were echoes in the galaxy itself. Weeks later, humanity received its first sign that the universe had truly taken notice. Signals came from distant space, slow, rhythmic, almost musical. At first, they were difficult to decode, but over time, using the being's technology and human understanding, the scientists began to translate them. The messages were simple, Words of acknowledgement, not threats. Words of curiosity, not war. The galaxy had recognized that Earth had done something unusual. They had spoken for the weak, protected those cast out, and chosen life over fear. The messages continued for months. They didn't come as orders or commands. They came as questions, invitations, and sometimes just observations. You shelter the banished. Why? One message asked. You risk much to protect those who cannot defend themselves. How do you find courage? Another asked. Your world shows a heart. Can it sustain it? The humans didn't answer directly at first. They weren't sure how to speak to an entire galaxy, but the beings spoke for them. Slowly, carefully, they explained Earth. Its flaws, its fears, but also its hope, its kindness, and its courage. And the galaxy listened. Months passed. Life on Earth continued, but the shelter became a place of quiet diplomacy. The beings and humans began to communicate regularly with distant worlds, sharing knowledge, asking questions, and learning about civilizations far older and stranger than anything humans had imagined. Through all of this, a bond formed not just between humans and the beings, but between Earth and the larger universe. The beings taught humanity that every choice mattered, that kindness could be stronger than weapons, and that even a small world like Earth could be seen as a beacon. One evening, as the sunset filled the sky with gold, one of the humans asked a question that had been on everyone's mind for months. Will they ever forgive your galaxy? Those who cast you out? The being looked thoughtful. Its glowing eyes reflected the soft light. We do not need forgiveness. They cannot erase what has been done, but they can learn, and us, the human asked. Can we teach them too? The being smiled faintly. Yes, you have already begun. For the first time, the humans realized something incredible. The beings had been given a second chance, not just themselves, but their entire species. And Earth, too, had been given a chance to be remembered, not as a small, insignificant planet, but as a world that chose mercy when the universe expected fear. The months turned into years. The beings began to integrate more with human life. Some chose to stay in the shelter, helping scientists and sharing knowledge. Others ventured out carefully, hidden in cities, learning about human culture, food, art, and music. They were no longer afraid. They had found safety, friendship, and purpose. Earth began to change quietly, too. People who had learned of the being's existence slowly realized the truth. The universe was bigger than their fears, and sometimes the smallest acts of kindness mattered more than the loudest acts of power. The beings shared small gifts with humanity, knowledge about energy that could heal the planet, ways to purify water and air, ideas for clean, sustainable cities. They never demanded anything. They only offered what they could. And through it all, the humans learned a lesson they had never expected, that helping those in need, even beings from beyond the stars, could change the fate of a world. One night, a group of scientists gathered by the coast looking at the stars. The ocean reflected the sky, calm and endless. The being stood beside them, silent but present. One of the scientists asked softly, "Do you ever miss your home?" The being looked at the horizon. Its voice was calm. "Our home is not a place now. It is a memory. Our home is here with those who see us as we are." The human nodded. "And Earth?" The being smiled. "Earth has become part of us. As we have become part of it, you have given us heart, and in return we have shared what you could not yet see." For a long time they stood there together, humans and beings, under the stars. No words were needed. The universe seemed quiet, waiting but no longer threatening. Eventually, the messages from the galaxy slowed. The Council, the same force that had banished the beings, sent no more warnings. They observed quietly but no longer with judgment. The humans realized the truth. Their actions, their courage, their choice to protect the banished beings had changed something fundamental. The galaxy had looked at Earth and seen it as a place where mercy and kindness could survive. The shelter became a symbol, a quiet, hidden monument to what humanity could achieve. The beings and humans lived and worked together, sharing knowledge, exploring possibilities, and teaching each other about patience, trust, and hope. The world outside slowly learned as well. People no longer looked at the stars with fear. They began to dream of connection, curiosity, and understanding. The universe felt a little closer. The galaxy was no longer a distant mystery. It was something to be part of, not something to fear. Years later, the beings gathered once more in the shelter. They placed their hands over their chests, the gesture of respect and gratitude they had shown when they first arrived. "We were lost," one of them said softly. "We were banished. We were afraid, but you took us in. You gave us home and heart." The humans smiled, some silently crying. They had done more than protect lives. They had changed the story of the universe itself. The beings continued. "The galaxy has seen you. It will remember. And now you are part of our story as we are part of yours. Together, we will go forward, not in fear, but in hope." That night, the stars shone brighter than anyone could remember. The ocean reflected their light, and somewhere in the universe, the council observed quietly. They had witnessed something new, something they could not banish, silence, or control. Earth had chosen kindness. The beings had found home. And humanity had finally learned that courage was not in weapons or power, but in heart. And for the first time, the world felt truly infinite.